Hello everyone, good morning. Am I audible? Yeah, perfect. Okay, so let's begin with the session. Okay, so in today's session, we are just going to continue, where we left out in the previous session. Okay, so we kick started with exceptions, right? Okay, so from past 2 days, we were talking about something called as exception. As I told you here, okay, it's one of the most important topic with respect to interview as well as project here. Okay, here. So what is an error? Okay, I have told you, how do you define an error, right? What is an error here? So you can tell, previously let me go over here. Okay, if you want me to explain over here. So as I told you, error, it simply means it's a mistake or a problem or an interruption which will happen during the execution of a program. Error is a mistake or a problem or an interruption which might occur during execution of a program. That is, during compile time we get an error and during run time we get an error. Why do we get an error during compile time? Due to syntax mistake. And why do we get an error during runtime? Mostly when we execute a class without main method, we might get runtime error here. So errors cannot be handled. Errors cannot be handled. They have to be debugged. What is an exception then? Exception also is an interruption or a blockage. Okay, which stops the execution of a program. Exception is also an interruption or a blockage which stops the execution of a program, wherein the below lines of code will not get executed. Therefore, what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to handle it. We are supposed to do what? Handle it. And how do we handle an exception? Try and catch block. And the process of handling an exception is, exception handling. We know what is try, we know what is catch, we know what is finally block as well. And we saw two important methods, that is, print stack trace method and get message method. And we have seen lots of important things with respect to exception. Okay, so make sure go through the particular notes as well as the video in order to get the clarity about it. Okay, so in today's session here, we are going to talk about a very important and slightly confusing topic, but it's you have to digest it. Okay, we know what is an exception, don't we? Okay, we know what is an exception, sir. Exception is an interruption which will stop the execution of a program. Correct? It's an event. Exception is an event which will occur wherein the program gets terminated and the below lines of code will not get executed. So we know what is an exception. And this exception is majorly categorized into two types here. Okay, whenever we talk about exception, they are majorly categorized into two types here. Sir, what are those two types, sir? The first one is called as checked exceptions and the other one is called as unchecked exceptions here. So there are two types of exceptions. What are those? Checked exceptions and unchecked exceptions here. Okay. In simple terms, checked exceptions are compiler known exceptions. What are checked exceptions? Checked exceptions are compiler known exceptions, whereas unchecked exceptions are compiler unknown exceptions here. Sir, what is the meaning of known, unknown? Okay, I will tell you. Checked compiler known, unchecked compiler unknown. Sir, what is the meaning of it, sir? I will tell you here. Okay, and all the checked exceptions should be handled. Okay, you need to handle all the exceptions, but this should be handled immediately. Okay, checked exception should always be handled immediately, whereas unchecked exception should be handled. Okay, even all the exceptions should be handled, but not immediately here. Okay, this is what we are supposed to understand here. And the last point under that here is all the checked exceptions will inherit, meaning it will extend exception class. All the exceptions, checked exceptions will inherit the exception class directly, and all the unchecked exceptions will inherit, meaning extends a runtime exception class. Okay, so this is what we are supposed to understand. Okay, so this is what we are supposed to understand with respect to the data here, runtime exception class here. Okay, this is all about it. Clear, guys? Okay, so now I'm gonna prove it practically. Okay, over here you will not understand anything over here. Okay, so I go back to my Eclipse wherein I'm going to explain the process over here. We already have created a project called as exception handling. Under that, let me create a package. Okay, let me create a package, and the package name, you can give it as jspiders. Okay, I'll just give the package name as jspiders. Under jspiders over here, let me create a class here. Control N. I create a class and the class name is A. Okay, I create a class called as A over here. So you have to just observe what is happening over here. So I have a class called as A, and I have my main method wherein, okay, I have to, wherein the execution will generally begin from. I have my main method. So I have a class and I have my main method wherein the execution is beginning from. So now here, guys, when I tell sys out control space bar, okay, when I tell sys out control space bar, we get the print statement over here. Now when I tell 10 divided by 0 here, as soon as I 10 divided by 0 here, we know that, I know that it will give an exception. Okay, I know that it will give an exception, but the compiler does not know it. Therefore, I execute the program. See, I execute the program here, and then I get to know the exception here. See, exception in thread main, java.lang.arithmetic exception. We are dividing by 0 and the line number is 7. So, arithmetic exception is an example for, okay, arithmetic exception is an example for checked exception, unchecked exception here. Okay, why, sir, it is an example for unchecked exception? Because arithmetic exceptions are compiler unknown exceptions. Okay, that is unchecked exception. So we need to handle it, guys. We need to handle that. But the compiler is not forcing us to handle it immediately. As soon as I tell 10 divided by 0, the compiler is not forcing us to handle immediately. Clear? Similarly, we have patience. Next 15 minutes you need to have patience. I'll create one more class called as B. Okay, and now I will have my main method wherein the execution will begin from. Now when I create an array here, okay, see, I just create an array over here, 10, 20, 30 over here, and I just try to print it as sys out a of 1000. Okay, a of 1000 here. So as soon as I write this particular data over here, okay, as soon as I write this particular data over here, we know that when I tell a of 1000, we don't have any index position as 1000, right? We don't have any index position as 1000. But now we know that it will give an exception. You know it, I know it, but the compiler does not know it. So when I execute it, I get to know, okay, we are getting an exception called as array index out of bound exception here. So it is still compiler unknown. It is unknown to the compiler. Therefore, even array index out of bound exception is an example for unchecked exception. Why? It is unknown to the compiler and we need to handle it. But the compiler is not forcing us to handle it immediately. Okay. Now here, look at the next example which I give. I create a class called as C. Okay. And I will have my main method wherein the execution will always begin from. Okay. So now here, I'll have one for loop. Okay. Everyone knows what is the functionality of for loop, right? So long back we started with it. Okay. I plus here. And over here, I'm just going to start it from, okay, here I'm just going to print the value of I here. So here, what is happening over here? In this specific program here, when I try to execute it here, I will get the output as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Did we get the output as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Absolutely, we got the output as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. Okay, but now my program necessity, what is the requirement is, it has to print 1, give 1 second pause. It has to print 2, 1 second pause. 3, 2 seconds or 1 second pause. 4, 1 by 1. Therefore, we have a predefined class called as thread. Okay, we have a predefined class called as thread that is present in java.lang package. In that thread class, we have a static method called as sleep. Okay, and I am going to give 2000 milliseconds. If I give 2000 milliseconds, it means 2 seconds. Thread is a predefined class in java.lang package, and it has a static method called as sleep. Okay, and we are going to pause the execution for 2 seconds. But now as soon as I write this particular line, can you see it's giving an error over here? Okay. If I just hover on it, it is telling unhandled exception type interrupted exception. It means when I tell thread.sleep of 2000 here, the compiler already knows that if I use this particular line, there is a possibility of an exception. The compiler knows it, already knows it. So he is forcing us to handle it immediately. So he's telling, hey programmer, when you use thread.sleep of 2000, there is a possibility of interrupted exception. So you need to handle it immediately. Did I execute my program as of now here? No, I'm not yet executed it. Meaning not the initial one. After writing thread.sleep, have I executed the program? No. Why? Because the compiler is forcing us to handle it immediately. So I have to surround this particular line within try and catch block. Okay. So now when I execute the program, look at the output here. 1, 2 seconds pause 2, 2 seconds pause 3, again 2 seconds pause 4, 2 seconds pause 5 over here. So that way I am getting the output 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 only, but after 2 seconds pause here. So interrupted exception is an example for what type of exception? Interrupted exception is an example for checked exception. Why? Because compiler is forcing us to handle it immediately. Okay. Therefore, these are all the examples for checked exception. I'll give you one more example. Okay, see here. Control N, I give it as D class D. Okay, class D here. And I have my main method wherein the execution will begin from. Okay, now over here, guys, imagine there is some information in my file. Okay, and I want to read the contents from the file here. Okay, what is your requirement here? I want to read the contents from the file. So I will create something called as file. Okay, I'll create an object, a file reader. Okay, file reader is a predefined class in java.io package, and I am creating an object of file reader here. So quickly understand here, guys. Imagine file reader is a predefined class in java.io package. So I am creating an object of file reader class, and file reader class is present in java.io package. Okay. Now here I have to give the file name from where I need to read the data. So as soon as I tell demo.txt, it gives an error. See, as soon as I hover on it, it's telling unhandled exception type file not found exception. It simply means that when I am trying to read the data from a file here, the compiler already knows that, okay, there is a possibility of file not found exception. Okay, so therefore, the programmer has to handle it immediately. I'll just click on this particular line. See what happened here? Okay, we are trying to handle it immediately. So in the catch block, I can just write one print statement as file not found. So in simple terms here, it's common sense that, okay, if you're trying to read from a file, that file should be existing. Only then I can read the data. If the file is not present, can you read it? No. So therefore, the compiler already knows it, okay, that at certain times exception might occur. So we have to handle it immediately. So once I executed file not found, why? Demo.txt is not at all existing. How can you read from that specific file here? So file not found exception is also an example for checked exception here. Okay, this is also an example for what? Checked exception over here. In simple terms, go back to the program, go back to the theoretical part. We know what is an exception. Okay, it's an interruption which is stopping the execution over here. But that is categorized into checked and unchecked. Checked exceptions are compiler known exceptions, wherein it will force you to handle it immediately. So certain instructions, when we write it down, the compiler already knows that it might give an exception. So the compiler will force us to handle it immediately. Whereas unchecked exceptions are unknown to the compiler. The compiler does not know at all. We need to explicitly execute it, get to know the exception and handle it. For example, see here, when I tell 10 divided by 0 here, you know it will give an exception, I know, but the compiler does not know. It is compiler unknown exception, that is unchecked exception. So therefore we have to execute it. Oh, I get to know exception and then I come and handle it using try and catch block. So we are handling it, but not immediately. So unchecked exceptions are unknown to the compiler. We need to handle it, but not immediately. Similarly, when I tell a of 1000, I am trying to print the element in the 1000th index position. But you know there is no 1000th position, even I know it. But still, compiler also does not know it. Okay, so compiler does not know it. So array index out of bounds exception is an example for unchecked exception because compiler unknown exception. We need to handle it, but not immediately during program developing only. I execute it, I get to know the exception, later I come and handle it. So unchecked exceptions are compiler unknown, you need to handle but not immediately. But now, as soon as I use thread.sleep of 2000, okay, as soon as I lay this particular instruction here, it gives an error. Why? Because interrupted exception is a checked exception. When I use thread.sleep of 2000, my program execution is pausing for 2 seconds. I repeat, when I tell thread.sleep of 2000, I am pausing the execution of the program for 2 seconds. There might be some person who might come and disturb. Correct? No, one guy is sleeping. Okay, there is a possibility someone might come and disturb. So the compiler already knows it. Okay, when I use thread.sleep of 2000, there might be someone who might come and interrupt. Okay, that's the reason the compiler is forcing us to handle it immediately. So that's the reason we have to handle an exception. But when is the question? Is it immediately or after some time? Again, when I tell file reader f equals to new file reader here, I am trying to read from that specific file here. But as soon as I write this data, I get an error. Why? Because compiler already knows it. There might be an exception of file not found exception. So we need to handle it immediately. So we need to handle it what? Immediately here. So in simple terms, checked exceptions are compiler known exceptions and which will force us to handle it immediately. Unchecked exceptions are compiler unknown exceptions wherein we need to handle but the compiler does not force us to handle it immediately. And this is one of the most important points. All the checked exceptions will inherit the exception class directly, and all the unchecked exceptions will inherit the runtime exception class directly. So all unchecked exceptions are subclasses of runtime exception, and all checked exceptions are subclasses of exception class. So never ever forget this particular point here. Clear everyone here? Okay. So this is what we are supposed to understand here. So if you go back over here, if I go back to interrupted exception, press Control on your keyboard, hover on it, click on it here. So if I just click on it, can you see? Interrupted exception is a checked exception which is inheriting exception class. Okay. Therefore, all the checked exceptions will inherit the exception class. Again, go to arithmetic exception, hover and click on it here. See here, arithmetic exception is an unchecked exception. So therefore, it is inheriting the runtime exception class. So all the checked exceptions will inherit the exception class and all the unchecked exceptions will inherit the runtime exception class. So this is all about checked and unchecked here. It's easy, but we just need to digest what is happening over here. Clear? So now tell me, do you all have any questions with respect to checked and unchecked here? But we need to talk about throws also, which I'll be talking it in some time. But as of now, any questions with respect to checked and unchecked here? Very good. Okay. So we just understood what is checked, unchecked. But the most important topic which we are supposed to discuss in today's session is throws keyword. What is throws? What is the advantage of throws? Okay, everything we just need to understand. look at the, look at the definition what I have here, just read out once, okay, and I'll explain it, and then again we'll come back to the definition and see. What is throws? Throws is an indication to the caller about the possibility of an exception, okay. In other words, it is used to propagate an exception. Generally, throws is used with checked exceptions, and we use it with methods only, but we can use it with constructors as well. You just read it, probably you wouldn't have understood anything. Okay, okay. So now let us try to understand the working of it. Just read out the points here, okay? Read out once, later we'll go and understand what is happening over here, what is the meaning of it here. Okay, so just have a look at it once. Read it once, okay, that's more than sufficient. 10 seconds, read it. Yeah, right. Okay. So now we'll go back to our, explanation perspective. Okay. Closely observe, guys. Okay. I have a class, and the class name is demo. Open curly braces and close curly braces. I have a class, and the class name is demo over here. Okay. And I will have a static method. Why static? Because I can access it directly here. Static void is the return type, and div is the method name. Open parenthesis close, open curly braces, close over here. Okay. So now here I can access static methods with the help of class name or directly within the same class. So we have seen what is static, blah 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 blah, everything long back. I will have my main method wherein the execution will begin from. Open curly braces and close curly braces, and for my understanding I will just write it as start. Okay, I can just write it as start, and at the bottom I can just write it as end over here. Okay, I can just write it as end over here. So now over here, what am I trying to do here? So now here simply I have to call the method. How will I call the method? I will write it as div or. Okay, so now here, I'll just write it as SOP, okay, open parenthesis close, and I am trying to divide 10 divided by 5 here. So what will be the output, sir? It's very, very simple. Okay, sir, the execution starts from main method. Start will get executed. Okay, then div meaning I am calling the div method over here. Since it's a static method, we have to access it with the help of class name. But since it is within the same class, I can also access it directly. So I call the div method 10 divided by 2. 2 will get printed, and control will slowly come back, sir, and end will get executed. So the output will be start to end here. Correct? Without any problems, I got this respective output here. Right? Similarly, scenario number 2. Okay, scenario number 2, what will happen here? Okay, sir, I try to divide a number by 0. Now what will be the output? Simple, sir. I start my execution here. Start will get executed. Okay, and then I call the method, sir. I call the div method. 10 divided by 0 means arithmetic exception will occur and your program will get terminated there itself. Why? Exception is an event. Exception will occur and your program execution will stop. Okay, so you got arithmetic exception, and then your program stopped. It got terminated. Okay, but now what are we supposed to do here? Sir, we are getting an exception, sir. So therefore we need to handle it, sir. Okay. The exception is occurring in the method. Okay. And we need to typically handle the exception with the help of try and catch block. But the div method does not want to handle the exception in the method here. You got the point? What am I trying to tell over here? Okay. So in simple terms over here, we are getting an exception in the method. Okay, guys, 2 minutes. Closely observe and listen to what I tell here. Okay, we are getting an exception in the method here, and the method does not want to handle the exception. So therefore, that process, that exception might occur in the method, and that has not been handled. That information has to be told to the caller. So how will you tell it? You will tell with the declaration throws arithmetic exception. Throws short form arithmetic exception. So now what is happening over here? I start the execution of a program, start will get executed, and when the div method is calling that particular method, when the div method is calling the method, it is telling throws arithmetic exception. When I tell throws arithmetic exception, it is an indication to the caller. It is an indication to the caller that exception might occur in the method and that has not been handled. That information has been told to the caller. So what will the caller do here? Since the exception is not handled in the method, so the caller himself will surround with try and catch block here. Try and catch block. Did you all understand what is happening over here? Exception is occurring in the method and we are not handling it in that method here. So that information, that indication has to be given to the caller. That I do it with the help of throws arithmetic exception. When I tell throws arithmetic exception, it's an information to the caller that exception might occur and that has not been handled. So the caller himself will surround caller himself will surround with try and catch block. So in simple terms, try and catch block should be used in a method, but we are propagating it. We are transferring it to the caller side here. So this is called as throws keyword. Okay. I will give you a couple of examples in order to understand it beautifully, but you just need to have the patience level. Okay. Patience. Okay. Now I will create a class called as demo here. Okay. I'll create a class called as demo and you will have a static method. If it is static method, I can call it directly. Ashte. It's not that you have to make use of static method only. Okay, now, and I will have my main method wherein the execution will begin from. So I'll just write it as sysout start for my understanding, sysout end for my understanding over here. So I have written start and end over here. Okay. Now within the div method, I'm just giving it as 10 divided by 2 here. So what will be the output as of now, guys? What will be the output as of now here? Will I get 5 or will I get 2 here? What will I get? Will I get 5 or will I get 2 here? Tell me no. What will be the output? So it's simple that, sir, you have not called the method only, sir. Okay, you have not called the method only. So your output will only be start and end here. Correct? No? Common sense. See, I have my main method over here. Execution starts from main method. Start will get executed. End will get executed. Ashte. Where did I call the method here? I haven't invoked the method yet. Correct? So if it was, static methods, we can call it directly within the same class. So what will be the output? Start, you call the div method, the div method gets called, okay, 10 divided by 2 is 5, control comes back end. So when I execute my program, I'll get it as start, 5, end in a beautiful manner here. Very good. Okay. Similarly, if I try to divide a number by 0, what will be the output? See, start will get executed. As soon as you try to call the method and you're trying to divide by 0, you get an arithmetic exception telling you are trying to divide by 0, we are getting an exception. Which two lines are affected? Line number 6, line number 13. So these two lines are responsible for giving an exception. So see, line number 6 is giving an exception and line number 13 is also calling the method. So that is the reason we are getting an exception. So these two lines are affected with problem here, exception. So what are we supposed to do basically here? Sir, we are getting an exception in the method, sir. We need to handle it, sir. But exception is occurring in the method and the method does not want to handle it. So that information has to be given to the caller. How will I give to the caller? I will just tell throws. What type of exception? Arithmetic exception. It's not AE. I have to write the complete exception. Here I did not have space, so I write it as AE. Okay. So div method throws arithmetic exception means with the declaration of the method I'm using it here. So start, when the div method is calling the method, the div of means I'm calling the method. Since it is telling throws arithmetic exception, it is an indication to the caller that exception might occur in the method and that has not been handled. So that information was told to the caller. So what will the caller do? Now the problem is with the caller now. Because exception is occurring in the method and he has not handled it, that information has told to the caller. So what should the caller do now? The caller should handle himself with try and catch block. So we have to, make sure the caller will handle the exception with the help of try and catch block here. This is all about the entire data here. So if you want here, we can just write it as sys out, you can write it as handled. Okay, we can just write it as handled here. Okay, clear. So now when I execute the entire process here, I will get the output as start handled end here. So we are getting an exception, but since we have handled it at the caller side, it is peaceful here. I have a couple of questions. I'll answer it at the last page. This is all about the entire process. But even if I don't use throws keyword over here, it will work fine. Why? Because it's an unchecked exception. And throws majority of the time is used with checked exceptions. Okay, I'll show you an example for it. Okay, see, control N, I will create a class called as test. Okay, and I have my main method over, not main method. So I'll just write it as static void display. Okay, I have a static method which is just going to display. Okay, so for loop. Okay, I'll just write it as I lesser than or equal to 5, and over here I equals to 0, I less than or equals to 5, I plus plus. Sys out, I'm just trying to print the value of I here. See here, I have my main method wherein the execution is beginning from. Okay, so this is all about my entire process here. Clear? Now, sir, display is a static method. Okay, it can be non-static also, doesn't matter. And void meaning it does not return anything. So I call the display method. You can call the display method directly because it's a static method. Display of control over on the method, click on the method. I call the method and there is a for loop in the method. And what will be the output here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I'm so sorry. I did not print anything over here. I need to print I value and I'll start from 1. I don't want 0. Okay. So the output will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now I want to print 1, 2 seconds pause, 2, 2 seconds pause, 3, 2 seconds pause, 4, 2 seconds pause, 5, 2 seconds pause. So I have to make use of thread is a predefined class and we have a static method called as sleep. And how many seconds do you want to stop? Imagine it is 3 seconds. That is nothing but 3000 milliseconds. So when I tell thread.sleep of 3000, the compiler already knows that. Okay, when you use this particular instruction, we might get an exception called as interrupted exception and you need to handle it immediately. But the method does not want to handle that exception. He does not want to use try and catch block. So what is the alternative? If the method does not want to handle the exception with the help of try and catch block, the other way apart from that is I have to make use of throws. What type of exception? It is interrupted exception. So I will just write it as interrupted exception. So when I try to call, see, display of, I am trying to call that method, but that method is telling throws interrupted exception. What is the meaning of throws interrupted exception? It means in the method here, there is a possibility of interrupted exception and that has not been handled. There is a possibility of interrupted exception and that has not been handled. That information is told to the caller. When I tell throws interrupted exception, that information has been told to the caller. So what should the caller do now? The caller should surround himself with try and catch block. Okay, the exception was occurring in the method and that exception is not handled. So we have to inform the caller about the possibility of that particular exception so that he can handle it. So this is all about the entire process. So it's handled now. Okay, it's handled because checked exception should be handled immediately and I have handled it. So I am getting the expected output here. Okay, this is all about the entire process. Now there's one small question. Okay, see here, sir. What if I do not know the exception, sir? See, when I tell display of, this is giving an exception. We need to handle it immediately. But the method does not want to handle it immediately. Does not want to handle with the help of try and catch block. So the optional way is to use throws only. Make use of throws only. Okay, but if I do not know the exception name, what I can do it? I can directly write it as exception. So it means display method. Okay, there is a possibility of an exception and that has not been handled. So that is the meaning of throws exception. So what should the display method do? the display method should handle that respective exception. See, the exception thrown is exception, and we are trying to handle it with the help of exception. So when I execute it, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a beautiful manner. After 3 seconds pause, each and every time after 3 seconds pause, I will get it. Okay. So it's not that we have to always make use of that part here. Okay. We can just write it as superclass exception if we are not sure of it as well. Okay. So now there is one important question, sir. Sir, why do we use it, sir? What is the importance of it? Yeah, I will tell you here. I will tell you here. Okay, don't worry about it. Okay. So this is one such feature which is very, very important for efficiency perspective. Okay. And I'll give you one more instance of this. Okay. Wherein, I want good clarity about it. Okay. So I want good, complete understanding so that we can tell the difference here. So you'll have a method called as void read data. Okay, there is a method called as void read data, and I will create an object of a class called as file reader. File reader f equals to new file reader of, and I'll write it as dinga.txt. Okay, so now closely observe. We have an example class and we have a non-static method called as read data. So now my requirement is to read the data from a file. Okay, so I created an object of a class called as file reader, and file reader is present in java.io package. So I have imported it. As soon as I hover on it, see, it's telling unhandled exception type file not found exception. It means there is a possibility of an exception in the method and we need to handle it. But the method does not want to use try and catch block and handle it. So what is the alternative way here? So if I do not want to handle it using try and catch block, I have to tell throws what type of exception? File not found exception. So what did we understand over here? When I try to call read data method, it is telling throws file not found exception. It simply means there is a possibility of file not found exception in the method and that has not been handled. That information has to be given to the caller. So now in the main method, okay, I will try to call the method. This is a non-static method. Non-static method means what am I supposed to do? Example e equals to new example, and I tell e dot read data. As soon as I tell e dot read data, it's giving an error. Why? When I try to call the method, this is the method caller. When I try to call the method is telling throws file not found exception. It simply means it is giving the information to the caller that file not found exception might occur in the method and that has not been handled. So that information is told to the caller. So what will the caller do here? Okay, the method is only not handling. So the caller only will handle the exception with the help of try and catch block. Okay, file not present. Okay, file not present here. So that way. So when I executed, I got the exception. See here, I got the output as file not present. Clear? It simply means here, what is the definition of throws here? Okay, see here. Throws is an indication to the caller about the possibility of an exception. It simply means exception might occur in the method and that has not been handled. That information or indication has to be given to the caller. So it is used to propagate an exception, meaning transfer. Exception was occurring in the method, but he is not handling, he's trying to propagate, he's trying to transfer it. Okay, so this is the meaning of that. And it is used with checked exceptions. Majority of the times, throws will be used with checked here. We can use it with constructors also, but majority of the time we use it with methods only. Okay, so this is all about the importance of throws here. Okay, I hope you understood what is throws, but what is the importance of this particular feature, sir? What is the advantage of it, sir? I will give you one scenario. Okay, so just understand carefully. Okay, just understand carefully what is happening over here. Okay, closely you need to understand over here. Okay, so now here, okay, so here imagine I have a class here. Okay, I have a beautiful class here. Okay, closely observe guys. And in that class, I have m1 method, I have m2 method, okay, and I have m3 method. Okay, so now in simple terms here, there are three methods: m1 method, m2 method, and m3 method. And in all the three methods, there is an exception. in all the three methods, there is a possibility of an exception. What are we supposed to do? Try and catch, try and catch, try and catch. Clear? We have a class and we have three methods, that is M1, M2, M3. And all the three methods are giving an exception. So we are handling try catch, try catch, try catch. We have handled it successfully. Okay. Now done. Now I want to call the method. I call M1 off. Okay, I call M1 off. I slowly call the method. Exception is occurring. Since it is handled with the help of try and catch block, it will get executed and the control will come back. And I am done. I am done with my execution. I'm done. Okay, I'm happy I'm done with the execution. Okay, but now tell me, your execution is done. But there is M2 method and M3 method, okay, which you have not called, which you have not used at all. But don't you think so? Unnecessarily, I have handled it with the help of try and catch block here. M2 method and M3 method, I'm not trying to invoke, I'm not trying to use it, but unnecessarily, I have handled it with the help of try and catch block, try and catch block. This is misuse of costly resources. Okay. So therefore, I can make use of the solution for it. I can make it a bit efficient for it. How, sir? Simple, simple, simple. So now I have the same class and I have the same three methods. M1 method, okay, M2 method and M3 method. The same three methods are there. In all the three methods, exception is occurring. Exception, exception, exception. There is a class and there is three methods. In all the three methods, exception is occurring here. So what are we supposed to do? Handle it. But I will not handle here. I'll tell throws exception, throws exception, throws exception. So we are getting in all, we are getting exceptions in all the methods and we are not handling it. But we are just telling when you call that method, exception might occur. So now here I have told throws exception. I call the M1 method. I slowly call the M1 method. When I call the M1 method, it's telling throws exception. It simply means exception might occur in the method and that has not been handled. So when I tell throws exception, exception might occur in the method and that has not been handled. That information has been told to the caller. So what will the caller do? He will handle himself with try and catch block. He will handle with try and catch block. So M1 I call, okay, exception will occur. Since it is handled using try and catch block, doesn't matter, your program execution will happen in a smooth way. You're done with the execution. But in this particular scenario, M2 method is not called, M3 method is not called. Have we handled the exception unnecessarily? No. We have to handle the exception only when we try to utilize it. Not all the time here. Misuse of costly resources. Imagine I'm having only three methods. In real time, we will be having 1,000 methods. No. Will you use all the 1,000 methods at a time? No. You might have only hardly 4 or 5 methods. Is it necessary to handle all the exceptions in all the 1,000 methods? No. Only when you try to call it, that is when you have to handle it. So that's the reason to make it a bit efficient here. Okay, not trying to misuse the resources. We're trying to do this process. In scenario number 1, we were handling all the exceptions in all the methods. Wherein I'm not trying to call M2, not trying to use M3, but we have handled unnecessarily. Okay, what is the use of handling it? Because I'm not invoking at all. In second method, I will handle only when I use it here. So wherein the efficiency is comparatively high here. Okay. So this is the major advantage of throws keyword here. Okay. So this is what we are supposed to do it here. Okay. Okay. See, first of all, I'll tell you here. Okay. There's one more question. Okay. We have to create a method to use it. Okay. Imagine over here. Okay. Imagine over here. You are working on a feature. Okay. You are working on a particular feature here. Okay. See, I'll tell you one more scenario. Take an ATM example. Okay. Take an ATM example. Okay. So now over here, you will have three features. Okay. Imagine deposit. Okay. Withdraw. Okay. Withdraw and then check balance. Okay, check the balance here. Only three features, imagine. Deposit, withdraw, check balance. You have all the three functionalities here. So once you visit an ATM here, okay, once you're trying to deposit over here, okay, is it possibility that we might try to experience some kind of problem? For example, if you're trying to deposit over here, okay, imagine certain notes, okay, might be fake notes here. Okay, you're trying to deposit some amount, okay, but hard money, okay, not soft money here, trying to transact here. It's the money which you have in your hand. You want to deposit over here. So once you're trying to deposit over here, that particular notes might not be detected over here. You might utilize this feature, you might not utilize this feature. Again, when you try to withdraw over here, okay, what happens over here? While you withdraw here, the balance might be sufficient or insufficient. There might be two possibilities also. You might have so and so account balance, you might not have so and so account balance, okay? And then again, if you want to check the balance, again, we might come across certain problems here. So now you visit an ATM here, and is it important? Will you use deposit, withdraw, check balance? Will you use all the three features? No, those features are available here. Once you go to an ATM here, you can either deposit or withdraw or check balance, right? You might do all the three, or you might do one feature, you might do two features, it depends here. But if I generally handle the exception everywhere over here, don't you think so? It's misuse of the data here. It's misuse of the resources here. If you're utilizing the feature called as deposit, that is when we are supposed to handle it. Correct. In your utilizing the feature called as withdraw, and there might be 1,000 people here, okay, not one or two people will be using it. So therefore, we will have those features here, okay, deposit, withdraw, balance, blah 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 blah, FD, recurring deposit, loans, credit card, debit card. So many features we have, but we might come across so many problems also. Is it necessary to handle it all the time here? No. Only when I use this feature, we will try to handle it. So that way, we are trying to avoid that particular feature over here. Okay, misuse of costly resources here. That's it. Okay. Now, did you get the clarity here? Developers will create it. Okay, in simple terms here, as a developer here, I will have 1,000 features, 1,000 methods here. Okay, but as the user, the client, he might not use all the 1,000 features, right? All the 1,000 methods here. Only when he uses it, that is wherein he has to handle it at the caller side here. So that way we are trying to just avoid that part here, complexity reduction here. That's it. That's the major advantage of it. Okay. Okay, so there's one more question. All the three methods will be used at some point of time, and whenever used, if its handling it is present there itself, no need of handling in any other program or class here. Okay, no, see here, some point in time meaning that is what some point in time that might be some point, right? You're not telling 100% sure, you're not sure of it, right? If I don't utilize that resource only. See, you're talking about one or two features. Imagine of a larger perspective here. If you're working on an e-commerce application here, there are so many things which will be available. I might not use. See, probably I don't have that credit card at all. Imagine a lifelong I won't have that credit card at all. Okay. So there is a payment mode called as credit card. So why should I handle it unnecessarily? Only when you have credit card, if you select that feature, that is when the problems, we are supposed to handle that. If I don't have that credit card feature only, why will I handle it unnecessarily? Okay, so that way over here, all the three methods will be used in some point in time. You might use it, but I might not use it, right? I don't have credit card at all. Why will I use it? You will have credit card, you will use it. That is wherein the handling will happen. Okay, so that way we are just trying to propagate an exception. That's it. Okay. So yeah, okay, this is all about it. If you want, I'll show it to you with respect to custom exception also. How can you avoid it here? Okay, we'll try to do it tomorrow. Okay, custom exception. Okay, what is the major advantage of it? And I'll again use throws keyword over there. Okay, when we will only create our own exceptions and try to avoid it here. Okay, probably at that time you might get better clarity about it. Okay, so this is the few things which we are supposed to understand over here, guys. Okay, so we probably understood what are checked exceptions, what are unchecked exceptions. Okay. So, okay. So we just understood what is throws keyword over here. Okay. This is the basic understanding of this entire data here. Okay. So anyone having, the basic questions about it? Any questions, guys? Any questions as of now, guys? Yeah, Kishan is too eager to know when will Java class get completed. I have told it several times here. Okay, okay, that I might require another 15 days to complete it. Okay, so every session you ask this, sir, how many days to complete Java session? How many days to complete Java session? Okay, so I require another 15 days here. Okay, don't ask me next time. Okay, because wait for it patiently. Okay, clear. So now yeah, this is one such process here. And a few days back here, a few days back here, I had given one calculator program here, right? Okay, I had given that calculator program. I hope majority of you had sent it to me. Okay, so let me try to, we have time, right? Okay, so let me try to this do this program here. Okay, so here control N. Okay, I will create a I will create a package name is, I'll just give it as example. Okay, under that package I will create a class and the class name is calculator. Okay, this is nowhere related to exceptions, guys. Okay, it's an independent topic which I'm trying to do. So this is what I told. There is a calculator class. Okay, and you will have, okay, four methods. Add method, which will accept two arguments, int a, int b, and that has to return the sum of two numbers, int a plus b. And over here, I have to write the return type as int. Why? Because add method is accepting two parameters a and b, and I have to return a plus b. It is returning the sum of two numbers. Okay. Similarly, I have to have three methods. What is it? Sub method will return the subtraction of it, and mul method will return the multiplication of it here. Okay, and then, oh, I'm so sorry, here, multiplication, and div method will give the division part of it. Okay. Okay, so in simple terms over here, we are trying to have four methods over here. Calculator class, okay, and we are having four methods: add, subtract, multiply, and divide here. So here in the main class over here, what will I do here? It's simple. I will have my main method wherein the execution will always begin from. So initially what I'll do here, sys out, I'll just write it as welcome to calculator. Okay, calculator, welcome to calculator project. Okay, so that way I'll just do it over here. Okay, so this is what we will be understanding over here. Okay, after that here, after this entire process over here, we need to accept dynamic input everywhere. I mean, there is a lot of dynamic input used here. So I will create an object of scanner. You can create it anywhere. Scanner scan equals to new scanner of. Okay, you need to accept dynamic input, and you will pass system dot in over here. Okay, so after that here, I'll tell sys out. Okay, one for addition. Okay, I'll just tell enter choice. Enter choice. Okay, enter choice. Before that, I will just write it as one for addition. Okay, slash n means it goes to the new line. Two for subtraction. Okay, slash n, slash n. 3 for multiplication. Then I can go to the new line. I can just tell sys out 4 for division, and slash n 5 for exit. Okay, so once you just execute the program here, look what is happening over here. Welcome to calculator project. 1 for addition, 2 for subtraction, 3 for multiplication, 4 for division, 5 for exit, and enter choice. That's it. So you have to accept the choice into a variable. Int choice equals to scan dot next int here. Okay, so this is one feature here. And then here, I'm not implementing abstraction over here. You can do it. Okay, you can create an abstraction process also. Okay, how will you do it also, I'll tell you here. Okay, so first of all, you have to create an object of calculator class, I believe, correct? Calculator c equals to new calculator of. I create an object of calculator because I need to keep on calling that respective methods here. Switch of choice. If it is case 1, okay, it simply means addition. So first of all, I have to accept the input again. See, enter first number. Okay, so I'll just write it as enter first number. Then I will accept it into a variable called as int a equals to scan dot next int over here. And after that, the same thing I have to repeat it. Okay, the same thing I have to repeat it for b also. Okay, enter second number. Okay, that I will store it into a variable called as b. So now after that, okay, after that I will call C dot, okay, add of. See, C is the object of calculator and I'm calling the add method by passing A and B. When I call C dot add of A and B, I press Control on the keyboard, hover on the method, click on it. So when I call A and B value, it is returning the sum of two numbers. Since it is returning something, I have to store it into a variable called as sum. Okay, I'll store it into a variable called as sum. And later I need to print it. Okay, later I just need to print the data here. How? Sum colon, that way I'm just trying to print the sum here. And finally you need to make use of break. If I don't make use of break here, the below lines will get executed. Similarly, I have to do it for, okay, case 2, case 3, case 4. Similarly, no, okay, case 4 is divide, case 3 is multiply, and case 2 is subtraction. Okay, but now each and every time I need to keep on accepting the input. See, if I tell 1, it means addition. Enter first number, enter second number, call the add method. Case 2, enter first number, enter second number, I have to call the subtract method. Similarly, case 3, enter first number, enter second number, I'll call the multiplication. Enter 4, first number, second number, and I'll call the divide method. So wherein it's a tedious task over here, each and every time I'm accepting first number, second number. So that's the reason here I try to write it outside here, outside the case over here. So wherein I can make it a bit efficient over here. See, I'll just make it a bit efficient over here. As soon as I write it before the case over here, I'll just make it, I'm writing it outside the block over here. So I'll explain the code once, okay? Don't worry about it, okay? After that, what I will try to do here. So first of all, I have accepted A and B value, no? So I'll just directly call the add method and I'll print it and I'll write the case here. Similarly, case 2 here, which method should I call? Sub method. And that is nothing but the difference here. And I will print the difference over here. Difference equal to, and I have to print that diff over here. This again can be reduced in a single line only. How? So it's simple. See here, I will call the product. Okay, see here, I'll write it as product. Okay, so here I'll directly write it as C dot, okay, mul of A and B. I can pass it directly that way also. Okay, and break. And here also, okay, you can directly write it in a single line. Over here, I'll just write it as quotient. Okay, equals to, you can write it as C dot div of A and B over here. So that way, I'm just trying to make it efficient. Okay, and case 5 is nothing but exit here. So I have to just write sys out. Okay, just a moment. I will explain the entire code here. Sys out, I'll just write it as thank you. Okay, and how do we exit it over here? I have to just make use of sys out, not sys out, system dot exit of 0 here. Status code is 0. And I'll also have a default block in case if we have invalid choice. Sys out, I'll write invalid choice here. Okay, this is all about the entire process. After the switch statement, I can have one block in order to just differentiate it. Okay, this is all about my entire program here. Okay, but now when I execute the program here, see, enter welcome to calculator project, enter choice 1, enter the first number 10, enter the second number 20, sum equals to 30. My program got terminated, but I have to keep on looping this, right? I have to keep on repeating this entire process until I tell stop. That is the reason here I have to write this entire data within while of true. Okay, whatever you have to repeat it for n number of times, you have to write it within while loop. So once I try to write it in the while loop here, see, when I tell 1 here, enter first number 10, enter second number 2. 2 here, enter first number 12, second number 6. See, difference is 6 here. 3 here, you can just give it as 2 into 3, 6 here. 4, division. So I'll read it as 45, okay, and divided by 5. I get it as 9. So if I give 65, see, enter second number. So what is happening over here, So I hope you all understood what is happening in the calculator class. Sir, calculator is a simple class, sir, wherein we have 4 methods here. Add, subtract, divide, multiply. And it is returning this respective output here. In the main class over here, we have created an object of scanner because we want to accept dynamic input. and we have created an object of calculator because we have to call those add method, subtract method and all. They are all non-static methods. So welcome to calculator project will be printed, and I am writing everything within while of true because I have to keep on looping here. So first of all, this will get printed. 1 for addition, 2 for subtraction, 3 multiplication, 4 division, 5 exit. Whatever choice I give, it will be accepted. So why have I written it outside here? Enter first number, enter second number is because if I write it 1 here, I have to tell enter A, enter B. 2, enter A, enter B. I have to keep on accepting multiple times here. So that's the reason here I have written it outside here. Okay, switch statement. But the problem over here is, even if I give invalid input over here, okay, invalid input over here, 65, it is accepting enter A, enter B. Now it is telling invalid choice here. As soon as I tell invalid choice, why am I accepting the input here? If I tell 1, it should accept. 2, it should accept. 3, 4, yes, it should accept. Because I am trying to perform addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. If I tell 5 or 6 or 7, it's invalid choice. Why is it accepting the input? See, even if I tell 5 here, I am trying to exit it. Enter first number, enter second number, thank you. But why should it accept? Because I have written it outside the switch statement. Every time it will accept it here. So I will tell one if condition. I will make use of this if condition. If the choice is greater than or equal to 1 and if the choice is lesser than or equal to 4, meaning if it is 1 or above and 4 or below, that is wherein I need to accept the input here. Okay. But now here it works fine. See, if the choice is 1, 2, 3, 4, only when it is 1, 2, 3, 4, I will accept the input. Apart from that, I will not accept. But why is it giving an error over here? This A and B are giving an error over here. Why? Because see, A and B is giving an error. Why? Because since A and B are declared within this if block, this A and B are declared within this if block, they are local only to the if block. This A and B can be accessed only within the if block. That's the reason here I have to increase its visibility. So here I'll just write it as int A equals to 0 and int B equals to 0. Initially they both are 0. Okay. Later I will try to reinitialize them. So that way, we are trying to do it here. So now I can reinitialize it everywhere. See, now when I execute it over here, enter 1 addition, 2 plus 2, 4. Okay, enter 2 subtraction, 2 minus 2, 0. 3 choices multiplication, 1 into 2, it's 2 here. And if I give 4 at division, 2 divided by 1, it's 2 here. And if I give it as invalid choice 65, see, invalid choice directly, it's not accepting the input. If I give it as 5, exit, thank you. So if it is 1, 2, 3, 4, that is when I need to accept the input. If apart from that, I shouldn't be able to accept it. So that way, you're just trying to make it a bit efficient over here. That's it here. Okay. So this is all about the advantage of it. But now, press Control on the keyboard, hover on the method. See, wherein the implementation is easily visible, no? What is abstraction over here? I have to avoid the implementation, right? Press Control on the keyboard, hover on the method. I click on it. See, the implementation is easily visible. So you can have, an interface over here. I will create an interface called as calculator, okay, and you will have 4 abstract methods. Add of int A, comma, int B. So how many abstract methods will you have? You will have 4 abstract methods, okay, int A, comma, int B. So that way, in an interface, all the abstract methods are automatically public and abstract here. So we're just trying to have 4 abstract methods here, okay, to achieve abstraction over here. So this is an interface called as calculator, wherein it has 4 abstract methods called as add, subtract, mul and divide. So now you'll have a class called as calculator IMPL, implementation class, okay, calculator IMPL. So now over here, how am I supposed to implement it? Calculator IMPL implements calculator interface, and I have to override all the methods over here. See, annotation, override, okay. Similarly, I have to copy paste it everywhere, okay, because they are all overridden methods, okay. They're all overridden methods, but still it's giving an error. Why? Why is it giving an error, guys? Any idea? Sir, when a class is implementing an interface, we have to override the abstract methods. But since those abstract methods are public here, we have to mandatorily write it as public here, because the access specifier should be same or of higher visibility. So what are the rules for achieving abstraction over here? Oh, I'm so sorry here. The return type is int, no? So I have to change the return type as int also, because it's not void, because it is returning something. So it works fine. See, rule number one for achieving abstraction, I have to make use of an interface and I have all the abstract methods. Okay. Rule number two, Rule number two is we have to achieve easy relationship and we are supposed to override those abstract methods. Got the clarity? Three rules done. What is it? Make use of an interface and have abstract methods. Then make use of, a class which will implement the interface and override all the methods here. And over here, I need to achieve upcasting. How will I achieve upcasting over here? It's simple. Creating an object of subclass and storing its address into a reference of type super interface or superclass. The interface name is calculator and the implementation class is calculator IMPL. Now when I execute the program here, it works absolutely fine. One, see, if you give anything, it will work fine here. Okay, divided by 3, it works fine. If I tell 5 exit, done. But if I look at the implementation, see, hover, press Control on your keyboard, hover on the method, it's taking me to the interface method wherein the implementation is not visible. Okay, press Control on your keyboard, hover on the method, click on it. If I go back, it's just going to work that way. So that way, we have developed a simple project here by achieving abstraction over here, by achieving, inheritance over here. So that way, you're just supposed to, understand the process and try to do it over here. Clear? So what did we do over here? We created an interface called as calculator. It had 4 abstract methods. What are those? Add, subtract, mul, and divide. Here, 4 abstract methods were addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So I had one implementation class which was implementing all those interfaces here. Okay, I mean it was implementing all the interface and we were trying to override it. Okay, and after that in the main class here we developed the business logic. How does the project will work here? Okay, so welcome to calculator project, and while of true meaning it keeps on looping until I tell stop. Or while of true means loop. When I tell 5 it means stop. So I have done this entire program over here. So you can just look at the source code once. See, while of true I accept the input. And why is this if condition? Only when the choice is 1 and above, 4 and below, that is when we need to accept the input. And then I have to run the cases here. And that way we would be done with this entire project here. Okay. So this is all about the entire process, guys. Okay, so I'll be forwarding the code here. Try to work on it once, and if at all you have any confusions, let me know here. Okay. So this is all about the entire session, guys. Okay, so anyone having any questions with respect to today's session? Anyone having any questions with respect to today's session? Okay, great. Okay, so we are done with most of the things with exceptions. We are done left out with only one topic, that is throw and custom exception. Okay, which we shall try to do it in tomorrow's session. Okay, so great, guys. Okay, so we shall wind up a session for today and catch up tomorrow. Okay, so thank you all. Take care. Bye bye.